Daniel Suarez at Atlanta, Austin Cindric at Gateway, Harrison Burton at Daytona. This season has been full of upsets. Who could break through at Darlington? Let's break it down. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. One regular season race to go. The NASCAR Cup Series playoff grid will be set this Sunday night after the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway. Let's look at the current playoff picture. Some surprising names: Daniel Suarez, who missed last year; Austin Cindric, who missed last year; Harrison Burton, who, before his upset win at Daytona, was 34th in points. Shoot, if Richmond didn't go into overtime, Austin Dillon would be on this list as well. This has been the season of surprise winners, which brings my attention to the playoff bubble. Bubba Wallace, 21 points behind Chris Buescher for the final spot. That's not an insurmountable points deficit, but the clearest path into the playoffs is to win. That goes for Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, and every other winless driver in the field this weekend. As we've seen several times this year, anyone can turn their season around with one magical race, and Darlington has provided us some surprises in the recent past. Erik Jones in 2022, Regan Smith in 2011. In today's video, I'm going to rank the 8 drivers that I believe have a somewhat realistic shot of winning this weekend, upsetting the playoff grid. But before we get to that, this episode is sponsored by Lectric e-bikes. Introducing the Lectric X Peak. Lectric's all-terrain e-bike is equipped to take you off-road and encourages you to explore the world. Massive 26-inch tires, over 1,300 watts of peak power, trail-ready suspension. I've had a lot of fun breaking in my X Peak. You can head to lectricebikes.com to shop all of their models for various everyday and recreational use. That's Lectric with an L, ebikes.com. Link is down in the description below. Be sure to check them out. 8 drivers who are most likely to get their first win of the season this weekend at Darlington Raceway. He's a 2-time Southern 500 winner. We have to put Erik Jones on this list. 2024 has not been kind to Erik Jones, but I mentioned his 2022 Southern 500 victory. Going into that race, Jones had, at the time, 9 top 10 finishes on the season. Going into Sunday's race, Erik Jones has only 1 top 10 this year, and it was in the season opening Daytona 500. So to suggest Erik Jones is likely to pick up his 3rd Southern 500 victory this weekend is outlandish. But I won't say it's impossible, just highly unlikely. But he is a 2-time Southern 500 winner. Gotta make this list somewhere. Number 7, why not Chase Briscoe? Stewart-Haas Racing has been knocking on the door all season. Shoot, in the spring Darlington race, SHR had 2 Fords in the top 5. One of them was Chase Briscoe, who has an Xfinity Series win here in the 98 car. Had to beat one of the best in the business to get it, Kyle Busch. Stewart-Haas Racing has not missed the playoffs at least since Kevin Harvick got there, which was 2014. If you're not feeling as confident in Chase Briscoe, perhaps you're like me and you feel even more confident in his teammate Josh Berry. Josh Berry finished 3rd at Darlington in the spring. He's got Rodney Childers on the pit box, and the two of them have rattled off some really impressive finishes this summer. 3rd at Iowa, 2nd in that crazy Nashville race, 5th at Pocono, 3rd recently at Richmond. He led laps at Michigan, led laps at Daytona, finished 5th. Sure, Josh Berry and Rodney Childers are going their separate ways at season's end, but the season's not over yet. These two are clicking. They may not have been quite as consistent as some of their teammates throughout the season, but they've had far more peaks. And with winning you're in, you have 1 peak night, catch a break, you're in the playoffs. Don't count out Josh Berry. But now let's focus on some guys a lot closer to the playoff bubble. Beginning with Bubba Wallace. The car should be fast. Bubba Wallace has 5 top 10 finishes the past 7 races. He was 7th at Darlington in the spring. His teammate Tyler Reddick battled for the win. The car should be good. My concern with Bubba Wallace and why I have him only 5th on this list is because Bubba Wallace might be under more pressure than any other driver in the Cup Series field this weekend. Bubba was down on himself after Daytona. Bubba Wallace is a solid driver, but he's also a very emotional driver. The Southern 500 is a long grueling race with ups and downs, ebbs and flows. I would want my driver to be cool, calm, consistent. Focus is key, and I'm not convinced that's Bubba Wallace. Wallace qualified for the drivers' playoffs last year for the first time in his career. That was great, but they didn't qualify for the owners' playoffs. This year, they're trying to do both, and they're 21 points out. 13th in the regular season points is respectable, but when there have been so many surprise winners this year, it's not good enough. And it doesn't reflect well on Bubba that his teammate is first in the regular season standings with 2 wins. That's why I say there's so much pressure on him, and he knows it. He's very aware of the pressure, which is why he told reporters recently he's been off social media for several weeks. He's not watching this video or listening to what I'm saying, but he knows things like this are being said about him across the internet, across the media. Because it's true, he is under a lot of pressure. Bubba Wallace may be able to block out all the external noise, but internally you can tell he wants this so bad. His team wants this so bad. I think Bubba will have a fast car. Ran well here in the spring. But that much pressure, even for a professional athlete, is a lot to overcome. It's one race. He doesn't need to win, but I give him at least a fighting chance. 5th is Bubba Wallace. I actually give Ross Chastain a slightly better chance of winning this weekend. Go back to last year's spring race, he led over 90 laps before crashing into Kyle Larson on the late race restart. What I love about Ross Chastain is how fast he's been at intermediate tracks this year. He's got some really good finishes that stand out. Chastain has a 4th at Las Vegas in the spring. He was 11th at Darlington in May, 8th at Charlotte, but what's more impressive is the laps led. He led 33 laps at Texas, a mile and a half. He led 43 laps at Kansas, 45 laps at Nashville. Chastain has not looked dominant this season, but his best track type are the larger intermediate ovals. Darlington fits into that category. Ross has had some good runs there in the past that go back to his Chip Ganassi days. He had a top 5 run in the 42 car towards the end of its run. So Ross Chastain, Darlington, I could see them catching lightning in a bottle. Is it the most likely? No, but it's in 4th on my list. Ross's intermediate numbers are strong, but what have you done for me lately? Kyle Busch, the past few weeks, starting to look like prime Kyle Busch again. Is it too little too late? Maybe. Kyle only has 1 career win at Darlington. You got to go all the way back to 2008. But I can think of a couple of Southern 500s that slipped away. 2022, remember they had engine issues? He led, I think, over 100 laps that night. And actually, I just looked it up, but 2013, he led 265 laps until a late race tire issue forced him to give up the lead. So the results don't tell the full story. They rarely do. But still, Kyle Busch's Darlington history is not the best. But the last couple weeks, we've seen a rejuvenated Kyle Busch. The Olympic break was good for Kyle Busch. Remember, right before the Olympic break, he was running top 5 at Indianapolis. 2 laps to go, wipes himself out. It was bad. Really bad. Since then, Busch and RCR have figured something out. At Richmond, Kyle ran 12th. His teammate won the race. At Michigan, Kyle Busch led 24 laps, finished 4th. And Busch was leading at the start of overtime at Daytona, finished 2nd. So, if you ask me, Kyle Busch is knocking on that door. I often talk about how scary a motivated Kyle Busch can be. For much of this summer, we saw a defeated Kyle Busch. With Richard Childress Racing shuffling leadership around, it almost looked like their eye was towards 2025. They'd thrown in the towel on 2024. Since the Olympic break, I know it's only 3 weeks, 3 very different track types. RCR has a win, and Kyle Busch has 2 top 5s. Just saying, do not sleep on Kyle Busch this Sunday night. Kyle may only be 3rd on my list. I do believe he is the most likely driver outside of the top 16 currently to win his way in. My next 2 drivers are both currently in, looking to protect their points cushion. In 2nd, I have Ty Gibbs, who is not only looking for his first win of this season, he's looking for his first win, period. The Spring Darlington race was one of Ty Gibbs' best career cup races to date. He led 34 laps, earned 17 stage points, finished 2nd. Keep in mind, Ty Gibbs does not need to win, so Chris Gale may not be too bold on strategy. They're just looking for a solid top 10, top 15 run, and they're good to go. But how good they were here in May, how could Ty Gibbs not be near the top of my list? He's not number 1, though. In the number 1 spot, I want to show some love to Chris Buescher, because Lord knows he could use some love here after what happened to him in May. Chris Buescher leading late. Tyler Reddick, a failed slide job, wedges them both into the wall, ruined Buescher's race. Buescher Cred led 21 laps in that event, had one of the best cars. Honestly, even 1 year ago, last year's Southern 500, Chris Buescher finished third there too. He likes this place. Chris Buescher making the playoffs would be a huge statement for all of RFK racing, because this has been a weird year. Again, a lot of upsets. Assuming Chris Buescher makes the playoffs, that more than likely means that only one Trackhouse car made it in, Daniel Suarez. That likely means 0 RCR cars made it in. That would mean only one 2311 car made it in. For RFK Racing to potentially get both of their cars in the playoffs this year of all years, that says something about that team's growth, development in recent seasons, where they were pre-Brad Keselowski, pre-next gen, as to where they are now. I said there's a lot of pressure on Bubba Wallace, and I still think there is. I think he is under the most pressure of any individual driver, but Chris Buescher is up there because he's in the catbird seat. He's protecting his points lead. No one wants to be labeled a choke artist, and he's going to a track that he's had recent success at. So expectations are high. Buescher and all of RFK have been fast at the intermediates. Buescher nearly won Kansas 1.5 miles, missed it by an inch. I believe Chris Buescher, of all the bubble guys, has the best shot at pulling off the win this weekend and protecting his final playoff spot. Let me know in the comments below if you agree, disagree. Hope you enjoyed this kind of different style video, a chance to go through several contenders, talk about them individually. What do you think of my tier list here? Sort of a mini impromptu power rankings, if you will. Winless drivers most likely to lock in their playoff position this weekend at Darlington. It's a crown jewel race. Sometimes people forget that. Leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe for more NASCAR content every single day. And a big thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters. I'll be out of town for the next couple of days. I'll be back in time for the Southern 500, so you'll likely see me then. If I don't see you between now and then, now you know why. Don't be worried or anything. I'll be back. I'll be around. Thanks for watching this episode, folks. Take care.